My name is Megan Wilson. I'm 28, and 3 years ago, my brother Nathan framed me for stealing $39,000 from our family business. Dad believed him instantly. I was thrown out of our home with nothing but a backpack and the shattering realization that blood isn't always thicker than water. Fast forward to last month, they're begging for my help to save the business from bankruptcy. They expected anger, maybe revenge. What they got instead? Something neither of them saw coming. If you're watching this from somewhere that's taught you about family betrayal too, drop a comment below. I'd love to know I'm not alone in what I'm about to share. Growing up, I always thought our family was picture perfect. Well, as perfect as a family could be after losing a mother. Mom passed away from breast cancer when I was 15 and Nathan was 17. It destroyed us all, but Dad, Richard Wilson, the proudest small business owner in Minneapolis, somehow found the strength to hold us together. Megan, he would tell me during those dark days, we're Wilsons. We bend but never break. His construction company, Wilson Builders, became our shared purpose. While some families bonded over vacation photos or holiday traditions, we connected through blueprints spread across the dining table and weekend visits to work sites. I still remember the scent of sawdust clinging to Dad's flannel shirts when he'd come home, lifting me up as a little girl despite his exhaustion. My little businesswoman, he'd call me whenever I'd ask about profit margins or material costs. Nathan would roll his eyes, but back then, it seemed like harmless sibling rivalry. After Mom died, Dad became emotionally dependent on us in ways I didn't fully understand until years later. Nathan took on the man-of-the-house role, handling physical work at construction sites, while I became Dad's emotional confidant. Our grief bound us together, creating what I foolishly believed was an unbreakable foundation. College was a brief intermission from family life. I earned my business degree with honors, focusing on accounting and management, practical choices to help the family business thrive. Meanwhile, Nathan dropped out after 2 semesters, claiming college was a waste when he could learn everything on the job. Dad never pressured him to return, instead giving him increasing responsibilities on construction sites. When I returned home with my fresh diploma and big ideas, Dad welcomed me with open arms. Wilson Builders needs your brains, he announced at my graduation dinner. Nathan's got the brawn covered, but you've got the financial sense of your mother. I noticed Nathan's smile tighten at those words, but dismissed it as momentary jealousy that would fade once we settled into our roles. The first year working together went surprisingly well. I modernized our accounting systems, introduced digital project management tools, and streamlined our billing processes. Dad beamed with pride when I landed us a contract with a major developer by creating a detailed proposal that outshone our competitors. She's a natural, he told anyone who would listen. Nathan and I established what seemed like a comfortable dynamic. He supervised job sites while I handled office operations. We had lunch together most days, sharing stories and occasionally reminiscing about Mom. In retrospect, I should have noticed how he never truly celebrated my successes, how his compliments always carried a subtle edge. Must be nice sitting in an air-conditioned office while some of us break our backs, he'd joke, but there was something in his tone that should have warned me. By my second year at Wilson Builders, our revenue had increased by 30%. Dad started talking about expanding, perhaps opening a second office in St. Paul. Megan's financial management makes it possible, he announced during a staff meeting. I caught Nathan's expression darkening before he quickly masked it with congratulations. That Christmas, Dad gave me Mom's old pearl necklace. She'd want you to have this, he said, voice thick with emotion. You've become the backbone of this family, just like she was. I was too overwhelmed by the sentiment to notice Nathan silently leaving the room. I was so naive, so caught up in the comfort of being valued that I misread every warning sign. I thought Nathan's occasional moodiness was just stress from managing difficult work sites. I believed our sibling bond was strong enough to withstand professional differences. I trusted that family would always come first for all of us. How wrong I was. Looking back now, I realize Nathan wasn't just my brother working alongside me. He was watching me, studying me, learning exactly how our systems worked and where my blind spots were. He was taking note of how implicitly Dad trusted me with finances, how rarely my work was questioned or double-checked. He was patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And I, in my blissful ignorance, handed him the weapon he would use to destroy me. The first red flag appeared about 6 months before everything fell apart. I was reconciling our monthly expenses when I noticed discrepancies in our materials inventory. 3 pallets of premium hardwood flooring had been ordered and paid for, but only 2 were recorded as delivered. When I asked Nathan about it, he shrugged it off. Probably a clerical error, he said, barely looking up from his phone. Or maybe one of the guys counted wrong. I'll look into it. I should have pressed harder, but we were in the middle of our busiest season, with 5 major projects running simultaneously. The issue slipped down my priority list, and when Nathan later assured me everything was sorted out, I believed him. Around that same time, Nathan's lifestyle began to change subtly. He traded his reliable old truck for a brand new Range Rover. His wardrobe gradually upgraded from practical work clothes to designer labels. When I commented on his new watch, a Rolex I recognized from luxury ads, he casually mentioned smart investments and changed the subject. "Since when are you into the stock market?" I asked over dinner one night. "There's a lot you don't know about me, sis," he replied with an enigmatic smile. "I've been learning from a buddy who works in finance, making my money work for me instead of just working for money." Dad seemed impressed rather than suspicious. "That's my boy, always hustling." The pride in his voice stung a little. My financial management had saved the company thousands, yet Nathan's vague investments earned him immediate praise. Then came the client complaint that should have been my wake-up call. Barbara Sinclair, one of our most loyal customers for whom we'd renovated multiple properties, called me directly, confusion evident in her voice. "Megan, I just received another invoice for the master bathroom tiles we already paid for last month. Is this a mistake?" I pulled up her account, finding 2 separate charges for the same materials. "I'm so sorry, Barbara. This is definitely an error. I'll correct it immediately." After she hung up, I dug deeper, discovering 3 other instances of double billing over the past 2 months. All had been entered into our system using my login credentials, yet I had no recollection of processing them. When confronted, Nathan suggested I might be overworking and making mistakes. "Maybe you need a vacation," he said, his concerns seemingly genuine. "You're always here late. It's easy to slip up when you're exhausted." That night, I stayed even later, combing through our books with increasing alarm. Small discrepancies appeared throughout, excess materials ordered, but never used, minor charges without proper documentation, labor hours that didn't align with project timelines. Each individual instance was small enough to overlook in the daily rush, but together they painted a disturbing picture. I created a spreadsheet documenting every suspicious transaction, planning to show it to Dad the following week once I had organized the evidence. I saved it on my personal drive, password protected, not wanting to make accusations without absolute certainty. The next day, Nathan brought coffee to my desk, something he'd never done before. "Burning the midnight oil again?" he asked, nodding toward my computer. "Anything I should know about?" "Just routine checks," I replied, suddenly reluctant to share my concerns. Something in his overly casual tone made my skin prickle with unease. That weekend, we had a family dinner at Dad's favorite steakhouse to celebrate landing a major commercial contract. The tension between Nathan and me was palpable, at least to me. He was unusually attentive to Dad, reminiscing about childhood fishing trips and discussing plans to renovate Dad's cabin now that business is booming. When Dad excused himself to the restroom, Nathan leaned across the table, his expression unreadable. "You should really be careful about throwing around accusations," he said quietly. My heart stuttered. "What are you talking about?" "Your little spreadsheet. Very thorough." His smile never reached his eyes. But you might want to look closer to home before pointing fingers. Before I could respond, Dad returned and Nathan seamlessly switched to discussing the upcoming Minnesota Vikings season as if nothing had happened. That night, I checked my protected files, finding the spreadsheet seemingly untouched. Yet Nathan's words echoed in my mind. How did he know about it? What did he mean by closer to home? I should have backed up my files. I should have spoken to Dad immediately. I should have trusted my instincts that something was deeply wrong. Instead, I convinced myself I was overreacting. Nathan was my brother. We'd grown up together, mourned our mother together, built our careers side by side. Despite our differences, family was family. Whatever issues existed, we could resolve them like adults. 3 days later, everything I believed about family loyalty was shattered beyond repair. Monday morning started with such promise. Dad called me into his office before Nathan arrived, his expression unusually serious but hopeful. I've been thinking, Megan, he said, gesturing for me to sit. You've proven yourself beyond my expectations these past few years. I'd like to promote you to financial director with profit sharing. Eventually, I see you and Nathan as equal partners when I retire. My heart swelled with pride and gratitude. Dad, I don't know what to say. You earned it. This company's growth is largely thanks to your financial oversight. He smiled, adding, let's discuss details over lunch, just the two of us. I returned to my office floating on air, unaware that Nathan had arrived early and was standing in the hallway, just out of sight. Later, security footage would show him watching me, his expression darkening before he slipped into the administrative office, where our financial server was housed. At the time, I noticed nothing unusual. Around 10:30 a.m., our bank called. The representative's voice was tense as she asked to speak with Richard Wilson regarding suspicious activity on our business account. I transferred the call to Dad, thinking it was probably a false alarm from our recent large material purchases. 20 minutes later, Dad's roar echoed through the building. Megan. My office. No. I hurried in to find him standing behind his desk, face flushed with anger. $39,000, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Transferred out of our business account into a personal account last night. Want to explain that? What? That's impossible. I didn't. Don't lie to me. He turned his monitor to show me the transaction details. There it was, $39,000 transferred to an account I didn't recognize, but the digital authorization bore my employee ID and password. Dad, I swear I didn't do this. Someone must have accessed my credentials. Like who? His eyes narrowed. Before I could answer, Nathan appeared at the doorway, his expression a perfect mask of concern. Everything okay? I heard shouting. Dad gestured him in. Your sister has been stealing from us. What? No way. Nathan's performance was masterful, the right blend of shock, disappointment, and reluctance. Megan wouldn't do that, would she? The evidence is right here. Dad pointed to the screen. Dad, please, I pleaded, I'm being set up. Let me look into this. There's more, Nathan interrupted softly, pulling out his phone. I didn't want to believe it, but he handed it to Dad, who scrolled through what appeared to be text messages from my number discussing money transfers and plans to leave the company. These are fake. I protested, reaching for the phone. I never sent those. Dad pulled the phone away. They're from your number, Megan. Check my actual phone then. I pulled it out, hands shaking. Those messages aren't there because I never sent them. You could have deleted them, Nathan suggested gently, as if it pained him to accuse me. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Dad demanded access to my computer, where Nathan reluctantly pointed out a hidden folder containing spreadsheets of company accounts with notes about fund transfers. My legitimate investigation spreadsheet was gone, replaced by fabricated evidence of embezzlement. I noticed discrepancies last month, Nathan confessed, his voice breaking convincingly. small amounts missing. I didn't want to believe it was Megan, so I kept quiet, hoping I was wrong. But then I saw her creating these spreadsheets after hours. "You son of a," I lunged toward him, only to be restrained by Dad. "That's enough," he shouted. "The evidence is clear, Megan." "Dad, please," I begged, tears streaming down my face. "I'm being framed. Nathan's been acting strange for months. He's the one with the new car, the expensive watch. Where's that money coming from?" "Don't try to deflect this onto your brother," Dad snapped. "He works hard, and unlike you, he doesn't have access to our financial systems." This was the moment I realized how thoroughly Nathan had orchestrated my downfall. He'd positioned himself as the hardworking, loyal son while painting me as the privileged, entitled daughter. He'd studied our security systems well enough to bypass them without leaving traces. He'd manufactured evidence so convincing that my protestations sounded like desperate lies. And worst of all, he'd correctly calculated that Dad would believe him over me when pushed to choose. As the reality of my situation sank in, a cold numbness spread through me. I watched Dad and Nathan exchange glances, Dad's filled with disappointment and anger, Nathan's with perfectly simulated sadness and betrayal. In that moment, I understood I'd already been tried and convicted in Dad's mind. Nothing I could say would change what was about to happen. Dad's face transformed as I'd never seen before. The warm, proud father who'd raised me disappeared, replaced by a stranger whose eyes held nothing but cold fury and disgust. "I welcomed you into this business," he said, his voice shaking. "Gave you responsibility, trusted you with everything we've built. And this is how you repay me? By stealing from your own family." "Dad, please," I tried again, desperation making my voice crack. "Don't call me that," he snapped. "No daughter of mine would do something this despicable." Those words hit me like physical blows. I stumbled backward, gripping the edge of his desk to stay upright. "Richard," I switched to his first name, a last desperate attempt to reach him. "I would never steal from you. I love you. I love this company. Nathan is setting me up. Enough." He slammed his fist down, making us both jump. "I've seen the evidence with my own eyes. Your signature, your password, your spreadsheets. Stop insulting my intelligence." Nathan stood slightly behind Dad, his expression a masterpiece of pained concern. To anyone else, he looked like a heartbroken brother witnessing a family tragedy. Only I could see the gleam of triumph in his eyes. "What's happening here is very clear," Dad continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "You got greedy. Thought you deserved more than your salary. Decided to help yourself to company funds. And now that you're caught, you're trying to blame your brother." He shook his head. "I don't even recognize you anymore." "Maybe she needs help, Dad," Nathan suggested softly. "Professional help." I laughed bitterly. "That's rich coming from you." Dad squared his shoulders. "Here's what's going to happen. You're fired, effective immediately. Brandon will escort you to collect your personal belongings, only personal items, nothing from this company. Your access credentials are already being revoked." Brandon, our security guard who'd watched me grow up in this building, stood uncomfortably in the doorway. The shame of being supervised like a criminal by someone who used to slip me candy as a child was almost unbearable. "And then?" I asked, my voice hollow. "And then you leave. You're not welcome in my house or my business. You're throwing me out? Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore." His voice cracked slightly, the only indication that this was affecting him at all. "You should have thought about consequences before stealing from us." "I didn't." "You have 30 minutes to pack whatever you can carry from your room at home. Nathan will supervise to ensure nothing that doesn't belong to you leaves the premises." The surreal quality of the situation intensified as Brandon led me to my office. Colleagues I'd worked alongside for years averted their eyes as I emptied my desk into a cardboard box. Someone, Nathan, undoubtedly, had already spread the story. I was a pariah in the space of an hour. Nathan appeared as Brandon walked me to my car. "I'll meet you at the house," he said loudly, for others to hear. Then, under his breath as he passed, "I'll make sure Dad's not there when you arrive." No need to make this harder than it already is. His false compassion was perhaps the cruelest touch. At our family home, Nathan watched silently as I frantically stuffed clothing and essentials into a backpack and duffel bag. 30 minutes to pack up a life. Photos of Mom, my degree, basic toiletries, whatever cash I had hidden in my dresser. Everything else, furniture, books, mementos, would have to be abandoned. As I reached the front door, struggling with my bags, Nathan finally spoke. "You always were Dad's favorite, you know." His voice had shed all pretense of regret. "After Mom died, it was always Megan's so smart, Megan's going to college, Megan's just like her mother." Do you have any idea what that was like for me? I stared at him, incredulous. So this was revenge? Framing me for theft because you were jealous? He shrugged. "Call it correcting an imbalance. Dad will appreciate me now that you're gone." He checked his watch. "Your time's up. I need your house key." I dropped it at his feet, refusing to hand it to him directly. "He'll figure out what you did eventually. Maybe, but by then it'll be too late for you." He opened the door. "Goodbye, sis. Don't bother calling. I'll make sure Dad blocks your number." Standing on the porch of what had been my home since birth, watching my brother close the door on our shared history, something inside me shattered. I had no home, no job, no family, and very little money. My reputation was destroyed in the only industry I'd ever worked in. My father, the person I loved most in the world, believed I'd betrayed him. The first night in a cheap motel room, I experienced what I now know was a panic attack. Hyperventilating, chest constricting, convinced I was dying alone in a strange room. I called Dad 17 times. Straight to voicemail. I texted both him and Nathan, alternating between pleading for understanding and threatening legal action. No responses. By morning, my company email was deactivated. My health insurance terminated. My desk items had been boxed and left with the motel front desk, Brandon's small act of kindness. At the bottom of the box was a handwritten note. "I'm sorry. This doesn't seem right. Too little, too late." Nothing seemed right anymore. My entire identity had been stripped away overnight, leaving me adrift in a reality I couldn't comprehend. I was no longer Megan Wilson, respected financial manager and beloved daughter. I was Megan Wilson, alleged thief, family traitor, homeless and unemployed at 25. That first morning of exile, staring at my reflection in the motel bathroom's cracked mirror, I made myself a promise through tears. Somehow, someday, I would reclaim my life and my truth. I just had no idea how long and painful that journey would be. My savings disappeared alarmingly fast. Motel rooms, even cheap ones, add up when they're your only housing option. After 2 weeks, I had to face reality. I needed help or I'd be sleeping in my car. Amber Fletcher, my college roommate, was the only person who answered when I started making desperate calls. "Stay as long as you need," she offered, though the tightness in her voice suggested "as long as you need" had an unspoken time limit. Her one-bedroom apartment became my temporary refuge. I slept on a futon in her living room, trying to minimize my presence in her space, acutely aware of being a charity case. At night, I'd wait until she was asleep before allowing myself to cry. Job hunting was a nightmare. My resume looked great on paper, business degree, 3 years managing finances for a successful construction company, until potential employers called for references. I don't know exactly what Nathan told people in our industry, but doors slammed shut the moment Wilson Builders was mentioned. After 15 rejections in 3 weeks, I lowered my expectations and started applying for retail positions. Even those were suspicious of the gap in my employment history and my vague explanations. Amber's patience wore thin as weeks stretched into a month. "Have you considered therapy?" she suggested one evening, her tone carefully neutral. "You barely eat, you hardly sleep, and "I'm just worried about you." She was right. I was spiraling into depression, jumping at every phone notification, hoping it was Dad, spending hours crafting emails he never answered. My self-worth had evaporated. If my own father could believe I was capable of theft, what did that say about me? With Amber's help, I found Dr. Wilson, no relation, thankfully, a therapist who offered sliding scale fees. Our first session, I could barely speak through tears. "My brother framed me, my father disowned me, and nobody believes me." "I believe you," she said simply. Those 3 words were the first solid ground I'd felt under my feet in weeks. Through therapy, I began understanding the dynamics that had led to my situation. Nathan's jealousy, Dad's emotional dependence after Mom's death, my own blindness to the dysfunction beneath our family's surface. Understanding didn't erase the pain, but it gave it context. 2 months after my exile, I landed a job at Cornerstone Coffee. Minimum wage, early morning shifts, and a manager who clearly had reservations about hiring me. "One chance," he warned. "Any issues with the register, and you're done." The humiliation of making lattes for business professionals who were my peers just months ago was nearly unbearable. Occasionally, I'd serve former colleagues who would recognize me, their expressions shifting from surprise to awkward pity. Those moments sent me to the bathroom to breathe through panic attacks. With my first paychecks, I found the cheapest studio apartment in Minneapolis, a 6th-floor walk-up with questionable heating and neighbors who fought loudly at all hours. The building smelled perpetually of cabbage and cigarettes, but it was mine and Nathan couldn't take it away. My furnishings were pathetically sparse, a second-hand mattress on the floor, a folding table, a single chair. I showered with dollar store soap and washed my uniforms in the bathroom sink to save quarters for laundry. This was rock bottom, or so I thought. Then came the first Christmas alone. I volunteered to work the holiday shift, unable to face an empty apartment while imagining Nathan and Dad enjoying our traditional family celebration. When my shift ended, I returned home to discover water pouring through my ceiling, a burst pipe in the apartment above. My few possessions were soaked, the mattress ruined. Sitting on my soggy floor surrounded by the wreckage of my already meager life, something inside me finally snapped. Not into further despair, but into clarity. I'd been existing as a victim, waiting for rescue or vindication that would never come. It was time to rescue myself. The next day, I marched into a free legal aid clinic. The attorney listened to my story with professional skepticism. "Without evidence, this is your word against theirs," he explained gently. "Your brother was clever. Using your credentials means the digital trail leads to you, not him. So there's nothing I can do?" My voice cracked. "I didn't say that." He leaned forward. "You were the financial manager. If your brother's been embezzling, he's likely still doing it. Start building your case. Look for patterns, discrepancies. Document everything." That conversation changed my trajectory. I couldn't undo what Nathan had done to me, but I could prepare for a moment of opportunity if it ever came. I enrolled in online courses in forensic accounting, studying late into the night after exhausting shifts. I created a detailed timeline of events leading to my firing, noting every suspicious incident. I reached out to Barbara Sinclair, who remembered the double billing issue and promised to call if it happened again. Gradually, other small kindnesses emerged. Mrs. Hoffman, an elderly regular at the coffee shop, noticed my worn shoes and gifted me a $100 gift card, just because. Brandon from security sent an anonymous envelope with copies of surveillance footage showing Nathan accessing my computer after hours. A former supplier called to ask if I was available for freelance bookkeeping since Wilson Builders' accounts had become unreliable. These moments were lifelines, small confirmations that perhaps I wasn't entirely alone, that someone somewhere still saw my worth. By the 1-year anniversary of my exile, I'd been promoted to shift supervisor at Cornerstone. My studio apartment now had actual furniture, second-hand but dignified. I'd started a small side business doing bookkeeping for local shops, rebuilding my professional reputation one satisfied client at a time. I'd also stopped calling Dad. The weekly voicemails that went unanswered had become a form of self-torture, each silence reinforcing my abandonment. Dr. Wilson helped me see that healing couldn't begin until I accepted my new reality, however unfair. "Your father made his choice," she said during a particularly difficult session. "You can leave the door open for reconciliation without standing in the doorway waiting." I taped that quote to my bathroom mirror, reading it every morning as I prepared to face another day. I was no longer waiting to be rescued. I was building a lifeboat, plank by careful plank, that would carry me to whatever shore awaited. I had no way of knowing that the current was already shifting, slowly but inexorably bringing my past rushing back toward me. 2 years after being cast out, my life had found a new rhythm. I'd advanced to manager at Cornerstone Coffee, a position that came with health insurance and paid vacation luxuries that once seemed unimaginable. My bookkeeping side business had grown to 12 regular clients, mostly small businesses in the neighborhood who appreciated my attention to detail and reasonable rates. I'd moved to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood with actual bedroom walls and functioning appliances. The place had character, exposed brick, large windows, hardwood floors that creaked with history. It wasn't the spacious house I'd grown up in, but it was mine, filled with furniture and decor I'd chosen, a physical manifestation of my rebuilding. My online forensic accounting certification hung framed beside my business degree, a reminder of how far I'd come and the skills I'd gained through adversity. Those late-night classes had transformed my understanding of financial crimes, teaching me to spot patterns and discrepancies I might have missed before. More importantly, I'd found my voice again. The timid, broken woman who'd shuffled into Dr. Wilson's office 2 years earlier had evolved into someone stronger, more perceptive, and far less willing to accept mistreatment. I'd learned to build boundaries, not walls, but healthy perimeters that protected my hard-won peace. My social circle had transformed completely. Amber remained a friend, though our relationship had evolved as I became less dependent. My closest allies now were people I'd met after my fall. Jessica, a lawyer who frequented Cornerstone and eventually became both friend and legal advisor. Marco, a fellow manager whose unfailing humor helped during difficult days. And Zoe, a graphic designer who rented the studio across the hall and appointed herself my fun coordinator when work threatened to consume me. These people knew my story and believed me without question. They'd never met Nathan or Dad, had no connection to my past life, and loved me for who I was now, not who I'd been before. They were my chosen family, filling the void left by blood relatives who'd failed me. Therapy continued, less frequently but with deeper insights. "You've processed the trauma," Dr. Wilson noted. "Now we're building resilience and wisdom from it." Part of that wisdom was deciding not to pursue legal action against Nathan, at least not yet. Jessica, who specialized in financial crimes, had reviewed my evidence and delivered a sobering assessment. "You've built a compelling circumstantial case," she explained over coffee one Sunday. "But without access to current company records, we can't prove the ongoing pattern. We'd need a whistleblower or subpoenaed documents." "So I do nothing?" The frustration in my voice was evident. "You wait for the right moment," she corrected. "Nathan's type always gets sloppy eventually, and you'll be prepared when he does." That preparation became almost meditative. I maintained a secure digital folder documenting every piece of evidence: Brandon's surveillance footage, Barbara's statement about double billing, screenshots of suspicious transactions from my time at Wilson Builders. I created a timeline of events, regularly updated with rumors that reached me through industry contacts. Those rumors painted a concerning picture. Wilson Builders had apparently lost several major clients. Their once sterling reputation for reliability was slipping. Nathan had been spotted arguing with suppliers about late payments. Dad was seen less frequently at work sites, leading to speculation about his health. I absorbed this information with complicated emotions. Part of me, a small, wounded part one wasn't proud of, felt vindicated. Their success, without me, was proving unsustainable. Yet a larger part ached knowing the company Mom had loved, that Dad had built from nothing, was suffering. On the second anniversary of my exile, I took a personal day from work and hiked to Minnehaha Falls, Mom's favorite spot in the city. Sitting beside the rushing water, I finally confronted the question I'd been avoiding. If Dad called tomorrow, apologizing and asking me to return, would I go? The answer surprised me. 2 years ago, I would have run back instantly, desperate for his approval and my old life. Now, I wasn't sure. I'd built something valuable from the ashes: independence, resilience, self-respect. Any reconciliation would require acknowledgement of the harm done and significant changes to our family dynamic. I'd forgiven Dad in my heart. His grief over Mom had left him vulnerable to manipulation, and Nathan had exploited that masterfully. But forgiveness didn't mean allowing myself to be hurt again. Any path forward would need to be on new terms, with boundaries firmly in place. That evening, back home with a glass of wine, I wrote 2 letters I never intended to send. One to Dad, expressing my enduring love despite everything, my grief over our estrangement, and my hope that someday he would see the truth. The second to Nathan, releasing the anger that had poisoned my early months of exile and acknowledging that whatever emptiness drove him to destroy me was punishment enough. Writing those letters was cathartic, the final step in accepting that my healing couldn't depend on their recognition of wrongdoing. I was whole without their validation. I was Megan Wilson, not defined by what had been taken from me, but by what I'd built afterward. I burned both letters in my kitchen sink, watching the flames consume words that had weighed on my heart for too long. Whatever happened next, I was ready. The universe has a peculiar sense of timing. The very next morning, I received an anonymous email with a link to a recent article in the Minneapolis Business Journal. The headline made my coffee mug slip from my fingers, shattering against the floor. Wilson Builders faces bankruptcy amid fraud allegations. The article detailed how Wilson Builders was under investigation for financial irregularities, including misappropriation of client funds and tax discrepancies spanning 3 years. Nathan was mentioned by name as the company's financial manager, the position he'd apparently assumed after orchestrating my removal. The reporter noted that Richard Wilson had recently suffered a heart attack, leaving day-to-day operations entirely in his son's hands. For several minutes, I sat motionless among the scattered ceramic shards and cooling coffee, my mind racing through implications. According to the article, the missing funds totaled over $250,000, far more than the $39,000 I'd been accused of stealing. Nathan hadn't stopped after framing me. He'd escalated, growing bolder with each successful theft. My phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. Unknown number. Hello. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Megan. The voice was familiar yet strange. Nathan, but hollowed out, stripped of the confidence that had always characterized him. I need to talk to you. 3 years of silence, and now this. No apology, no acknowledgement of what he'd done, just the implicit assumption that I would listen because he needed something. Why would I talk to you? I kept my tone neutral, giving away nothing. It's Dad. A pause. He's in the hospital. Heart attack. Serious one. Another pause. And the business. We're in trouble. Big trouble. I'm aware of the business situation. It's in the papers. Then you know why I'm calling. Desperation edged into his voice. You're the only one who can fix this. The audacity was breathtaking. After destroying my life, he expected me to rescue him from the consequences of his actions. Give me one good reason why I should help you, Nathan. Not for me, he replied quickly. For Dad. He knows, Megan. He knows what I did to you. My heart stuttered. When? 6 months after you left. Found discrepancies I couldn't explain away. He's been different since then. Withdrawn. The heart attack happened right after the IRS contacted us about an audit. The revelation that Dad had discovered the truth yet never reached out to me opened a fresh wound. He'd known for over 2 years that I was innocent, yet his pride or shame had kept him silent. "I need time to think," I finally said. "I'll call you back." I spent the next hour on the phone with Jessica, discussing legal implications and options. Then I called Dr. Wilson for an emergency session. By evening, I had a decision and a plan. I met Nathan at a neutral location, a quiet corner table at a downtown restaurant. He looked terrible, his designer clothes rumpled, dark circles shadowing his eyes. His usual confident posture collapsed into something almost unrecognizable. "Thank you for coming," he began, his rehearsed humility transparent. "Let's be clear," I interrupted. "I'm here to listen, not to help." "Not yet." What followed was Nathan's version of an apology, a self-serving narrative about jealousy, opportunity, and things spiraling out of control. He admitted framing me but minimized his intent, portraying it as a momentary lapse rather than the calculated destruction it had been. "I never meant for it to go this far," he insisted. "I just wanted Dad to appreciate me for once." "And the $250,000? Was that also for Dad's appreciation?" He flinched. "That came later. After you were gone, I had access to everything. No oversight. It was too easy." "Where's the money, Nathan?" His gaze dropped to the table. "Gone. Bad investments. Some gambling. Living beyond my means." The company faced not just bankruptcy, but potential criminal charges. Dad was recovering slowly, refusing to see Nathan since discovering the extent of his theft. The family legacy that had sustained us after Mom's death was imploding. "I need your help," Nathan concluded. "Your financial expertise. Your clean reputation. If you come back, maybe we can save something from this mess." "And what do I get?" I asked, my voice steady. "Your job back. Your place in the family. Dad wants to see you." "No." I cut him off. "Those aren't gifts you can offer me. You took them unlawfully. They're already mine by right." His face fell. "Then what do you want?" "Justice," I said simply. "And protection." 3 days later, I walked into Minneapolis General Hospital, my heart pounding as I approached Dad's room. He was asleep, smaller somehow, tubes and monitors surrounding him like a technological cocoon. I almost turned to leave when his eyes opened, focusing slowly on my face. "Megan." His voice cracked. "You're really here?" "I'm here," I confirmed, keeping my distance. "I'm so sorry." Tears welled in his eyes. "What I did to you, there's no excuse. Why didn't you call me when you found out the truth?" The question had burned in me since Nathan's revelation. He looked away. Shame. Cowardice. How could I face you after what I'd done? Throwing my own daughter out, choosing Nathan's lies over your lifetime of honesty. His voice broke. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No," I agreed quietly. "You don't. But relationships aren't about deserving. They're about choosing to love anyway." We talked for hours, painful, necessary conversation about trust betrayed and the long road to rebuilding it. He revealed that he discovered Nathan's theft while reviewing old transactions, finding the same patterns I'd begun noticing before my exile. Rather than confront Nathan immediately, he'd secretly investigated, uncovering the full scope of the deception. "By then, you'd disappeared," he explained. "Changed your number, moved. None of your old friends knew where to find you. You could have tried harder," I pointed out. "I wasn't hiding." He nodded, accepting the truth of this. "Fear makes cowards of us all. I was afraid you'd never forgive me." That fear kept me paralyzed until my heart literally gave out. Before leaving, I outlined my conditions for helping salvage the business. Nathan would sign a notarized confession to framing me and embezzling company funds. He would perform community service and undergo financial counseling. Most importantly, I would become majority shareholder of Wilson Builders, with final authority on all decisions. You're not asking for him to face criminal charges? Dad seemed surprised. That would destroy the company completely, I explained. This way, there's a chance to rebuild while ensuring he faces consequences. Dad agreed immediately. Nathan, when presented with the terms, exploded in outrage before reality set in. My way offered his only chance to avoid prison. He signed with poor grace, his signature an angry scrawl across the document Jessica had prepared. The following Monday, I walked into Wilson Builders for the first time in 3 years. The silence that fell as I crossed the lobby was deafening. Brandon, still manning security, broke the tension with a warm welcome back, Ms. Wilson. Others followed his lead, some genuinely pleased to see me, others simply sensing which way the wind now blew. The work ahead was monumental. Years of Nathan's financial mismanagement had left the company in critical condition. Clients needed reassuring, suppliers required payment plans, employees deserved transparent leadership. I worked 18-hour days, sleeping on the office couch when necessary, determined to save what could be saved. Dad recovered slowly, returning to work part-time after 6 weeks. Our relationship followed a similar healing trajectory, tentative at first, gaining strength through shared purpose and honest communication. He deferred to my judgment on business matters, a reversal of our previous dynamic that spoke volumes about his respect for the woman I'd become in exile. Nathan worked in the warehouse, starting at the bottom rung under strict supervision. His resentment was palpable, but contained by the knowledge that his freedom depended on compliance. We spoke only when necessary, professional interactions devoid of familial warmth. Perhaps someday that would change, but I wouldn't force forgiveness that hadn't yet grown naturally. Family therapy became a weekly fixture, uncomfortable but essential. Dr. Reeves specialized in family trauma and pulled no punches, calling out unhealthy patterns and demanding accountability. These sessions were often more exhausting than the most challenging workdays, but they laid foundations for healthier relationships. 6 months after my return, Wilson Builders showed its first quarterly profit since my departure. Small, but significant proof that recovery was possible. A year later, we'd retained 80% of our clients and added several new ones, drawn by our renewed reputation for transparency and reliability. The journey from victim to victor wasn't a straight line. I still experienced moments of anger, lingering trust issues, occasional nightmares about that day of exile. But these moments no longer defined me. They were echoes of old pain, not fresh wounds. What I learned through this crucible of betrayal and redemption shaped my approach to every relationship and decision that followed. I discovered that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting. It's possible to release bitterness while maintaining boundaries. I learned that family can be both our greatest vulnerability and our most profound strength, depending on how we navigate those connections. Most importantly, I discovered my own resilience, the unshakable core that remained when everything external was stripped away. That knowledge cannot be taken, regardless of what material or relational losses might come in the future. Today, Wilson Builders thrives under joint leadership, Dad as the public face clients trust, me as the strategic and financial director who ensures that trust is warranted. Nathan continues his redemption journey, showing gradual improvement though our relationship remains professionally cordial rather than warmly familial. My chosen family, Jessica, Marco, Zoe, and others who stood by me during the darkness, remain central to my life, reminders that sometimes the most authentic connections form after our most significant losses. I've even begun dating someone who respects my independence and admires my strength rather than being threatened by it. If you're facing betrayal by those who should protect you, know this: your worth isn't determined by others' treatment of you. The path forward may look impossible from where you stand, but each small step creates possibility where none existed before. Build your life brick by brick, surround yourself with people who recognize your truth, and trust that even shattered hearts can rebuild into something stronger at the broken places. Have you experienced family betrayal that forced you to rebuild? Did you choose forgiveness, boundaries, or both? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Together, we create a community of survivors becoming thrivers, turning our deepest wounds into wisdom that lights the way for others. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the family we choose becomes our greatest blessing.